Okay. I just want to talk to you about Leaving Certificate Physics. So I suppose the idea of this presentation is if you're trying to decide whether physics is the right fit for you for Leaving Certificate, that this presentation might give you a little bit of insight. So there is a new physics course, which will be starting in September 2025. But for this cohort, September 2024, we will be continuing with the old course, the current course. It's a very nice physics course. It's very broad. It covers a lot of topics and to a decent amount of detail. So these are the different topics that we do: mechanics. So within mechanics, we would do like force and pressure and density and velocity and acceleration, and study like gravitational force of attraction, things like that. Heat, sound, light, electricity, magnetism, atomic physics, and then nuclear physics. And then particle physics is the option. So that's for higher level only. You can see then in a lot of the topics there are mandatory experiments as well, and then also filtered through all the topics there are demonstrations. So it's kind of one thing I really like about this course is that it's very hard kind of to go through a class of pure theory or a class of pure maths, or it's always a blend because that's the way the paper is designed. It's designed to be a blend of theory, maybe drawing diagrams, doing problem solving and calculations, doing practical work. So it's a nice blend of all of those kind of skills in almost every class. So how does Leaving Cert Physics differ from junior cycle physics? So physics is it's one of the four disciplines in junior cycle science. So you do biology, or the biological world, the chemical world, the physical world, and then earth and space. So this junior cycle course has actually very little physics in it. There used to be a lot more in the old course. So there is actually quite a big divide between these two, between junior cert physics and leaving cert physics. At junior cycle, the students do some velocity, some acceleration, and they do some graph work, and then they do a kind of a decent bit of electricity. But like all those other bits I mentioned, like sound, heat, light, they're all not on the junior cycle course. So I suppose for this reason, we've made a couple of adaptations. First thing being in TY, the students do a physics module. One end of that is to get a taster for what Leaving Cert Physics is like, and the other end is actually to bridge the gap a little bit, just to do a few of the demonstrations. I suppose that it's nice and fun as well because there's just lots of practical work, and then it helps me, for the students who do choose Leaving Cert Physics, it helps me to that they've seen the practical. So then when I refer to it, they've seen it. In some cases we can't do it, in which case we just do the practical at Leaving Cert. But it is quite it's a difficult course to get through. So obviously having those extra pressures aren't ideal. So that's that. The exam, so until this new course comes in, the exam is 100% based on the final exam. However, there is a big chunk of it. 30% of the final exam are questions based directly on the practicals that are done in class. So it's not that you get any marks for the work done in class, but the questions are based directly on it. So like what piece of laboratory equipment did you use in that experiment to measure the length of the card? So if you were there on the day and you did the experiment, you'd find that question quite easy. So that 30%, that's kind of a nice section A of the exam where it's all based on the practical work. The other 70% then is a mixture of short, long, and half questions based on all aspects of the course. So, and again, they kind of lean into what I was talking about earlier with being like theory, definitions, graphs, kind of diagram representation of a problem, oh god, there's lots. So there's all these different, your demonstrations, your practical work, all that sort of stuff. So you get all those bits in the questions as well, which is nice. And one of the kind of great things, and I hope we don't lose it with the new course, is there's a huge amount of choice incorporated into the physics exam. So if there are kind of topics that the students don't love, they can be left out, which is nice. I put this together because a lot of these questions I get all the time. So kind of what kind of a person or what kind of a student, I suppose, does well in physics. I think primarily a big thing is enjoying the subject, having an interest in it. Like, so enjoying studying science at junior cycle, having an interest in how things work. Like, you know, if I'm explaining how a rainbow is formed and you really don't care how a rainbow is formed, you know, it's going to be very difficult for me to make it interesting. So I suppose having that kind of naturally inquiring mind and wondering about how things work, that does help. It makes the theory more interesting if you're interested in the answer. Having a good work ethic is probably true of all subjects at Leaving Cert. Like, it's, you know, it's a difficult, all the courses are quite long, you know, so a good work ethic is important. I suppose why I have it included here is it's something that comes because we do so much problem solving, and because a lot of what we do in experiments is like, here's the answer, now go do the practical and try and get that answer. You need students who are kind of willing to try and try again. So if they don't get the answer the first time, that they're like, oh, I'm going to run that again and get it the second time. Kind of not quick to give up, because it can be hard to get the right answer the first time. Enjoy problem solving, kind of the same thing. It's pretty much what we do all the time. It's using the theory to inform the problem and then ultimately solving the problem. So again, kind of a bit of staying power and enjoying that process. Comfortable with group work. So, you know, there is a huge, obviously the exam is sat alone. You know, any exams you sit throughout the 2 years is done alone. You go home, you do your homework, that's done alone. So all of that stuff with problem solving and work ethic and all of that, that's all done alone. However, all of the practical work is done in groups. So you do kind of need both sets of skills. Good attendance. So physics, like I said, is just like a big problem to be solved. But a lot of the time, you know, a formula that I teach the students at the end of September of fifth year could then be used in a formula, or could be used in a problem in March of sixth year. So I've just noticed over the years that students who struggle with their attendance do find it quite difficult because they miss big chunks, and then those chunks impact on another piece of the course that they're actually in for, which can be quite frustrating for them. Last part there, I get this all the time. Do you need to be like brilliant at maths to do physics? You don't. You don't need to be brilliant. It's a very specific type of maths, you know, so generally speaking, the maths isn't hard, it's the problem solving aspect that's difficult. Like, so if you know the physics and you can apply the logic, the maths itself is not very difficult. So you do not need to be the best in your class at maths. But like, if you hate maths, like I said, in all this kind of problem solving area, if you don't like it, we barely go a day without doing a bit of maths in physics. So again, it's more about the enjoyment of it rather than being amazing at it. You can read through this yourself, pause the video. I got some feedback from some of my current students, and it was more just about, like, kind of from their point of view, exactly what I'm saying. So what about physics do they enjoy? What parts annoy them? You know, that's kind of what I looked for. So feel free to give that a read. I also just popped this in. There's so many things that studying physics can lead you into in after school. So we have things like opticians, doctors, dentists, engineers, different types of scientists, computer technician, computer programmer. I also put in electrician and mechanic. My own brother's a mechanic, and I helped him with the physics that he needed to pass his exams to become a qualified mechanic. And I've also helped apprentice electricians over the years. So just, I don't know, I suppose people tend to think of physics as a super academic subject, and that you only go on to be, you know, doctors and engineers and things like that. But actually, because physics is kind of, you know, to do with how the world works, it does actually feed into things like becoming an electrician, becoming a mechanic. So just something to consider, I suppose. So I hope that's helpful. Thanks very much for listening.